Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome, everyone, to our committee meetings here in the City Council chambers this 5th day of November 2019. And we welcome Mr. McLean from the Journal Pioneer and city staff members and members of the public. And Councillor Corey Snow is unable to be with us. He's at a province. And we have a number of items on the agenda, and I understand we're being the first time on camera on YouTube, so everything is being recorded. So welcome to all our viewers. And at this point, I'll turn it over to the Chair of the Planning Board, Councillor Brian McFeely. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Your Worship. The Planning Board agenda was sent out with the package. We have one agenda item tonight, the Comprehensive Development Plan, Slemon Park. So I would call the meeting to order and ask for approval of the agenda from Planning Board members. Moved by Councillor Adams, seconded by Councillor Ramsey, that the agenda be approved as circulated. All those in favor, say aye. Contrary, motion is carried. So for the public's information, Planning Board is Councillor Ramsey, Councillor Adams, and the Mayor and myself. So we're the voting members, but we certainly welcome the input of other councillors into the discussion. So the recommendation we're dealing with tonight, Slemon Park Comprehensive Development Plan Phase 1, the supporting explanation, the purpose. The purpose of this application is to approve a general concept plan Phase 1 for the existing land zoned as Comprehensive Development Plan CDA in Slemon Park, the residential area of Slemon Park, and the map is attached showing the proposed properties. The background: an application was received from Slemon Park Corporation for a portion of PID number 70680 to have Phase 1 of their Comprehensive Development Plan approved. The applicant intends to construct 16 single-family dwellings on Argus Avenue and Neptune Crescent in Slemon Park. The existing CDA zoning was approved by Council in October 2017. The CDA zoning was necessary as the province of PEI accepted the street network in Slemon Park, and in doing so, the streets were subdivided from the large parcel, which created a number of smaller parcels. The existing housing units did not meet any existing residential development standards, thus the reasoning for the current zoning of CDA. As well, there are mixed uses within the CDA zone. A comprehensive development plan was not required at the time of rezoning, as the application had no intention for further development at that time of the rezoning. And the map is attached there, showing the new parcels. The report, as per section 21.4 subsection A of the zoning bylaw, the applicant shall submit a comprehensive development plan for council's consideration in a form acceptable to the development officer, including the following information: 1, boundary of the site; 2, proposed land uses including parkland dedication; 3, proposed subdivision and road layout; 4, proposed building sites and massing; 5, proposed types, densities, and numbers of buildings; 6, proposed development standards; 7, proposed servicing concepts; and 8, any other information required by the development officer. In circumstances where development will be phased over a period of time, Council may approve a comprehensive development plan for each separate phase of the development. The recommendation is that the technical service staff recommend that the application from Slemon Park Corporation for Phase 1 of their general concept plan be recommended to be approved by Council. As per section 5.1 subsection B3 of the zoning bylaw, the Planning Board shall make a recommendation to Council on this application before it is approved or denied. The Planning Board recommendation, whether carried or defeated, will be brought forward for Council for a final decision. So I guess before we get into the motion, I just ask if staff have any further comments or Any questions or comments from?
There's no reason to send out letters to.
I don't think that's required in this.
I don't think under.
They own all the property.
They own, yeah,
And it's not required as far, it just has to come to a planning board and go to council.
right. Okay. I just wanted to clarify that.
Any other questions or comments?
Pretty straightforward.
It is pretty straightforward. I know Sean and David are here from Slemon Park. I don't know if you have any further comments or.
Well, Mr. Chair, Mr. Mayor, I guess I introduced myself. Do I? Sean McCarville. I am the president of Summer Park Corporation, and just to say that this is our contribution to PEI's housing crisis. We have the service of lots that are available for development, and this is our concept of how we can start that development as a small part of that overall solution.
Thank you very much, Sean. And it is, I think, pretty straightforward and very much a good news story, I think, in terms of helping us resolve some of the affordable housing issues in the province. So the planning board recommendation is that the application bears the recommendation of planning board. So we would look for a mover and a seconder from planning board. Moved by Barb Ramsey, seconded by Carrie Adams, Councillor Carrie Adams. Any other comments or questions before we have the vote? Oh, sorry.
I just wanted to thank Sean and the corporation for their input into our crisis here in the Summerside area. Thank you very much.
Councillor Durand.
Thank you, Councillor McFeely. Just a comment from myself, I guess, as the councillor for the ward that encompasses Slemon Park. I guess just it's very exciting news, I guess, for the folks there. And I know you guys probably have I know you do have a waiting list. So it's good to see, and really just congratulations and thanks for bringing housing to Summerside, and I can't wait to see it, and we'll work with you both, and it's great to see. Great news.
I understand,
Thank you,
through you, Mr. Chairman, that the construction will begin this fall?
That's the plan.
Thank you.
Okay, we have the motion. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Contrary? Motion carried
Unanimously.
unanimously. So that concludes the agenda items on planning board, Your Worship. So I would welcome a motion for adjournment of planning board.
Thank you.
And just for the benefit of the applicant, this will go to the regular monthly meeting of November.
The regular monthly meeting, which is
The third Monday.
21st? Yeah, Monday the 21st. 18th? Monday the 18th. Great.
Okay.
Thank you, folks. Thank you. Thank you,
Thank
folks.
you.
Thanks, David.
We'll continue on with the next committee.
Thank you,
item.
staff.
Yeah, thank you. Technical Services, you have the floor. Councillor Durand.
Thank you, Your Worship. I guess my vice chair isn't here, but he signed over all the power to me, so we are good to roll. We'll call the Technical Services Committee meeting to order, and I guess since my vice chair isn't here to second the motion to approve the agenda, I guess, Your Worship, if you like, you can do that. Okay, seconded by
Yes.
Seconded by Mayor Stewart. The only two items, I guess, on today's agenda would be Greenwood and Pope, the review of the traffic there, and then the First Street parking lot, with some interest in adding some or converting some parking spaces over to accessible. So we'll start, I guess, by I'll read into the minutes, I guess, the memo from Director Aaron McDonald concerning the intersection of Greenwood Drive and Pope Road. And it reads, a review of the intersection of Greenwood Drive and Pope Road was recently undertaken by WSP. The review was to consider what modifications could be considered to the traffic control, intersection geometry, and lane alignment to improve traffic flow at this location. The Pope Road at Greenwood Drive intersection is a two-way stop-controlled intersection with free flow on Pope Road and stop-controlled movements on Greenwood Drive. So stop signs on Greenwood Drive and nothing on Pope. The consultants collected the intersection turning movement and pedestrian counts during the morning, midday, and evening peak hours. The volume split between the major street, Pope Road, and the minor street, Greenwood Drive, was found to be 82% and 18%. To estimate the design hourly volumes, or DHVs, at the intersection, a factor of 1.1, a 10% increase in volumes, has been applied to the 2019 observed average traffic volumes. This data was used to complete a left turn lane, or LTL, warrant analysis for the major street, Pope Road, approaches. The data was also used to complete an all-way stop warrant analysis. As a rule, an all-way stop is best suited for an intersection where approach volumes are balanced with about 50% of the intersection approach volume on the major street and about 50% on the minor street approaches. A Transportation Association of Canada, TAC, all-way stop control warrant for the intersection of Pope Road at Greenwood Drive was prepared considering the 2019 average counts with 10% growth and a lane configuration with a single shared lane for right turns and through movements and an exclusive left turn lane on all approaches. The data was used to complete a signal warrant analysis. The intersection review included completion of a traffic signal warrant analysis to consider whether traffic signals are the optimal form of traffic control. The signal warrant analysis uses vehicular and pedestrian volumes and intersection, roadway, and study area characteristics to calculate a warrant point value. An additional signal warrant was conducted to determine if traffic signals would be warranted under this lane configuration and forecasted future traffic volumes, DHVs with 30% growth to reflect a horizon year. A growth factor of 1.3, or a 30% increase in volumes, has been applied to the DHVs to reflect future conditions. The consultants also used Synchro 10.0 intersection analysis software to model the intersection operations with the 2019 data, DHV design hourly volumes, as well as for future conditions, DHVs with 30% growth, to provide a comparison of intersection performance with alternate intersection traffic control. Intersection delays were considered for a number of different scenarios. The study analyzed combinations of traffic control devices such as two-way stop control, all-way stop control, and traffic signals, with lane configurations to improve traffic flow with respect to existing and future conditions. Scenarios analyzed included Scenario 1, the existing intersection layout with TWSC, which is two-way stop control. Scenario 2, left turn lanes on all approaches with TWSC, two-way stop control. Scenario 3, left turn lanes on all approaches with AWSC, all-way stop control. So that'd be a four-way stop. Scenario 4, left turn lanes on all approaches with traffic signals. Scenario 5, left turn lanes on all approaches with two-way stops, with a 30% kind of outlook on traffic growth. Scenario 6, left turn lanes on all approaches with all-way stops, with 30% growth considered. And Scenario 7, left turn lanes on all approaches with traffic signals, considering 30% growth. So there's the figures there of the single lanes with a stop and then the left turn lanes with a stop. So the existing lane on the left and the proposed on the right. Level of performance, summary, and upgrade options. Overall, the intersection should be planned for future signal installation with left turn lanes on all approaches. The analysis indicated that installing unwarranted traffic signals now is shown to increase the overall intersection delay, whereas adding traffic signals in the future when traffic volumes increase is shown to reduce overall delays when compared to the unsignalized intersection. While a roundabout analysis was not completed, the volumes are not balanced and would result in higher through traffic. In addition, it is expected that there is no adequate land available for the installation of a roundabout. The cost of widening and adding left turn lanes to all the approaches is estimated to be in the range of $100,000, with the geometric upgrades of the added left turn lanes already being constructed. The addition of traffic signals in the future is estimated to be in the range of an additional $150,000. The summary. A left turn lane analysis was conducted for the Pope Road approaches, which indicated that exclusive left turn lanes are warranted on the eastbound and westbound approaches, which will reduce queuing caused by left turn maneuvers and increase safety for all vehicles. Consideration should also be given to the addition of exclusive left turn lanes on the Minor Street, Greenwood Drive, approaches to reduce delays as determined through the level of service analysis. By adding left turn lanes on all approaches, the current delays on Greenwood Drive would be reduced by a range of 45 to 60% in the evening peak. Traffic signal warrant. Traffic signals are not warranted with respect to the 2019 design hourly volumes, current volume plus 10%. Traffic signals are warranted with respect to the projected future design hourly volumes, current volume plus 40%. Adding traffic signals now will increase the delays on Greenwood outside the peak times. Scenario 2, which is the existing traffic with adding left turn legs on all intersections, provides the best overall intersection performance by comparing all 4 legs of the intersection. This is the best option for today, as well as an increase of 10%, and also increases up to an additional 40%. Performance analysis indicated improvement to operations with an added left turn lanes for the 2019 DHVs, a reduced level of performance with an all-way stop, and an improved performance with the additional traffic signals for the future DHVs. So the recommendations from Tech Services. Number 1, the City of Summerside should consider installing exclusive left turn lanes on each approach at the existing intersection to improve intersection operations while planning for future installation of traffic signals. Number 2, the Pope Road and Greenwood Drive intersection should be reviewed every few years as nearby development occurs. So that is the recommendation from Tech Services to Council. If there's any discussion or questions, Director Aaron, we'll be happy to answer them, I'm sure.
Okay, just one through you, Mr. Chairman. That 40% increase, and maybe you answered it there in the last few sentences, but with the new park opening on Greenwood Drive, we don't know what percentage the traffic will increase in year 1 or year 2, but I think you had mentioned 2 or 3 years. But what if it meets that within the first year? And if we did go ahead with those left lanes, that would still be suitable for the traffic lights too. So it's not it's money well spent one way or another.
The intent of, if they do improvements in the phase of adding left turn lanes, do the overall total design of the intersection 4 signals, which would have left turn lanes, install the left turn lanes now, and the design would be there, and the layout for the left turn lanes would accommodate future installation of signals.
I see the photo there, the stop sign. Maybe it was mentioned, I didn't pick it up, but would that be a 4-way stop at that intersection?
No, I think that's just a graphic they had to show of where it exists now and how they should be adding left turn lanes, what it would look like. Just on that, when they did their analysis, it just showed up left turn lanes on Pope Road only, but their recommendation is to put them in on all of them, because it would help the current delays in Greenwood Drive and both sides of Greenwood Drive.
So the stop sign in the middle of the intersection there is
really not.
There's something to throw us off.
Correct. See if you're paying attention. Yeah.
But I'm sorry. But it's not going to be a 4-way stop, right?
Correct. They ran the analysis to say that
right.
4-way stop would make it worse than it exists.
It's not going to be, or they're not recommending it?
They're not recommending, and their analysis was showing that the 4-way stop would make the intersection worse than it exists today.
But
Because
council
there's
could make a decision that it
Yes, I'm just repeating,
there
that's
is-
what their study and review
the
provided.
reason for that is there's more traffic on Pope than Greenwood, right? Which
Eight-
makes sense.
82% to 18 was their numbers, yeah.
I travel this all the time, and I think this is probably the best recommendation we can come up with right now.
And just to clarify, the recommendation is from the consultant, we agree with it, but the last page, you stated it was from staff. That was their recommendation, which
Yeah.
we agree with.
I support it. Thank you.
Aaron, thank you. Greenwood Drive and Pope Road are in my ward, Ward 3, and also in Justin's. So I've received many complaints on that corner. So I really like your proactive approach on getting, you know, the lanes in and then getting ready for the lights when that time comes. So anyway, thank you for that
Good.
update. Thanks, Justin.
Thank you. Is that everyone? I guess nobody? Yeah, no, okay. And personally, I was also really happy to read this, so I know a lot of residents will be happy. And the data's there. There's no need to jump in to get in a light. So it looks great, and I guess we'll just be putting this forward for budget.
We will, as staff, we will probably go ahead and we usually typically survey a number of areas ahead of time. So whether it happens in 1, 2, or 3 years, the survey information would be still good. So we had budgeted some money in this category this year to do a study, and so we'll verify we have enough to do the survey, so we're ready, whether it be this year or next year, to do based on budget deliberations.
Okay, so we'll chat in January or February, possibly, about this. Okay,
We will bring forward a budget item based on this.
excellent, okay. So I guess the second item on the tech services agenda would be accessible parking in the parking lot on First Street. I believe it was Councillor
It was Councillor Snow brought it
Snow
forward.
that brought it forward, who's
Yeah.
not here this evening, so so he briefed Councillor Adams, and maybe
Okay.
we will hear that briefing now.
Sure.
Just quickly, from what I was told, we have the two spots on the end there that are painted blue. And then he had been contacted about splitting those up and putting one on each end, because right now they're more towards, when we're looking at it, to the strip mall on the right. He was requesting that those two be split up and one put on each end of that parking row. I believe, is that correct, Aaron? What the
That's the
explanation
gist of
you
what
got?
I understood from the issue, yeah.
Right. And it was just felt that for accessibility to people going into the one on our left when we're looking, it was just easier for there to be one sort of dedicated to each area rather than towards one. And it really doesn't, it's not a costly measure rather than just moving some paint, and painting over some lines, I guess. It doesn't. I don't
And
think
adding
these are-
signage at the other location, yep.
Right,
We have to have signage as well as the paint, yeah.
right.
Can we clarify where that is? I'm just not sure where that
Okay,
is.
I can walk you through that if it helps. If you can see the little cursor on the screen,
Please.
that's the police station building. This is what some people refer to the McNeil Mall. So at the south side of the police station, there's a parking lot that's open to the public. There's 2 stalls now that are marked. This was aerial photography. I'm not sure the condition of and the question was, that's why I drew these 2 blue lines. They are a little bit fairly similar, the distances to the entrances, the 2 entrances. The request that came to the councillor was people that go to this locations in through here. They wondered if one of these spots could be moved closer. Yes, you could, but in order to have one blue space occupies 1.5 regular spaces. So we had to go down and look at it and see where you could fit. You can't fit it at the other end. You'd have to come over to this other side, and you'd basically swap out one of these spaces and make it. It's hard to see there, but I have another image. See, right now, we have 2 different images that were flown at different times. This is during the day, so we have 3 cars parked here. There's a wide spot here that we could jog and make the handicap spot. That's an extra wide one because you couldn't really fit an extra space, so it's really 1.5 wide. So technically in this space, you could repaint and fit 1 handicap stall as well as 2 additional regular stalls, and then remove the handicap from one of these 2 locations. Because as you can see, the parking's always at a premium in the downtown, and right now the majority of those spaces are occupied except for a couple up at the top and the 2 handicap ones. So we could still just leave one of them there, remove the paint, make it a regular accessible stall, and have to do some work around here to repaint and make one of these and add a sign.
So we're not losing any parking spaces?
Yes, you would yes, but we're saying move one of these to this place. It would be our thought if that's what you want to do. There is enough room there. That's why in the first, we just roughly did this off of mapping. There's enough distance there, and that 10.5 is 10.5 meters to fit 2 regular stalls, which is 6. 4.5 is left for a handicap stall. So there's enough distance there from this planter box over to there to fit, change one of these in the extra space to a handicap stall, leave 2 regular stalls. We'd be left with 1 wider regular stall down here, which is not really an issue.
Pretty straightforward, I think.
I do have a question.
Yes, sorry.
I'm just looking at it. So the rationale for it was to bring 1 parking spot that would be closer to the other entrance.
Yes.
So if you move it down further in that, will it be a similar distance to the other entrance compared to where it's located now?
Right now, we would leave this one here farthest away, and it's closest to this entrance. And we would move this one here over to this location, and that's the entrance right there. I mean, we're not gaining a lot, but that's what the request was for you to consider. 2 of them together or 1 of them each place, that's...
Okay, so if there's any...
I guess really, if it's, we'd have to speak to Greg and his crews as we put the line painter away soon, as far as temperatures for the paint to be done, and actually if this is gonna be done or done next year. If it's gonna be done now, it's gonna have to be immediate if he has the crews available to do it, or in the spring.
So we would need council to give direction then at our next council meeting, or a special meeting before then.
Or you got 7 of you here now to make a consensus, if you're all in agreement to do it. I don't wanna jam an item on you.
Yeah, all in favor, just show of hands. So it's unanimous for all present, so.
Our issue, I guess, is that every time parking in the downtown is if we're making a change to it, that we would just soon get direction from all of us, then one of us, and through an email.
It's not it's not like we're decreasing the amount of spaces.
We don't have to change the bylaw to dedicate, there's 2 spaces already in that mall, so anything else is there in that parking lot.
Okay, so I guess with that being said, I will move for adjournment of the Tech Services Committee meeting.
Thank you.
Seconded by Mayor Stewart, and that is all for me now.
Thank you. We'll go to Municipal Services. Councillor Bruce.
That's how I understood it.
Municipal.
Municipal.
Floor is yours, sir.
Yes, so we have, first of all, I call for approval of the agenda. There's only 1 item on the agenda, and that's peak traffic hours, and I would probably ask that Director Greg come to the podium. You're on, sir.
I guess it was brought my attention from Councillor Adams on peak traffic times. I'm aware through the summer, this summer, probably since about May until end of October, We had several concerns from concerned residents on disruption of traffic patterns during peak times in the major roadways of the city of Summerside during certain works. To date, there was... It was on. During this date, 5 instances were recorded. June 11th was a crosswalk painting incident where traffic was disrupted for a small period of time, probably about a half hour or so. Not totally restricted, just restricted to one lane as flaggers controlled traffic. There was one a couple weeks before that, in roughly end of May. One major issue that happened on the McEwen Road and Water Street East intersection was the traffic light issue we had with the flashing lights, which lasted for about a week, which was trying, I think, on everyone's patience for traffic flow. The second, third one, fourth one came in at changing some traffic loop modifications from a water break in the area that undermined the roadway. The fourth one came a branch pickup on McEwen on October the 9th, and the final one was on October the 18th, roughly, for the crosswalk service at Tim Hortons, was what I had in record. Each one was fairly short in duration. By short, I mean less than 30 minutes of work, except for the flashing lights and the major repair to the roadway around the intersection from the undermine of the water break. At the same time, I can't comment on the other construction that didn't come to my department for capital works. That'd be tech services contracting work in the roadway. But some concern that was brought forward was, is there a policy to avoid certain peak times to do work in certain high traffic volumes? And it was hard to determine. Instructions were a little, they came in one at a time rather than thinking about a policy for the city of Summerside for not only for services to the public, but also for contracting work. And then also that would have to be some discussions internally that would also have to be delineated to Bell Alliant as well as Eastlink that use the right of way to do services. Same with any contractors in the city that might be doing sewer work or anything for developments and that type of thing. So there's a broad range of services that use right of ways, and right now there really is not a hard and fast description of peak avoidance and what streets, other than right now there was a lot on McEwen Road and Water Street itself. That would have been aggravated by construction at Central Street and the Granville's roundabout. That would have increased those traffic flows. But that was the concern that was brought forward. So for a committee to discuss if they want to look at doing some type of policy for road avoidance and what issues there might be in doing that for productivity and work scheduling, that type of stuff.
Is the message out to staff to try to avoid, like, whoever's doing the work orders or
Yes.
Foreman that, you know, to be on McEwen Road at bus time is probably not the best time, but I guess my thought, if there's no policy and if it's council's wishes to not impede traffic at those times, then directors should be basically asked to notify the staff so the message gets down to who it needs to try to avoid it at all costs, or not at all costs, but whenever possible, right?
They are. Some of the concerns sometimes aren't due to the sources of the information. It might be a little misinformed as to what exactly happened. So in some instances we talk to crews and say, what were we actually doing? And witnesses would say, well, we hadn't set up yet, but people were slowed down in the traffic lane, saw the crews preparing to stop the work, and basically called in to be concerned about the crews. Another instance at Tim Hortons, in reviewing the work plan, there was less than, I think, a minute disruption of total blockage to get a wire across the street during that process. And on the branch pickup, I would imagine would have been fairly short duration, probably maybe 5 to 10 minutes or less, where there was restricted to one lane, not necessarily blocked. So I guess the question that comes to, as directors, we always try to make the most efficient use of tax dollars to get the productivity and the work done in a timely fashion with the resources and time frame we have to do it with. We try to avoid the use of overtime, after hours, those type of things. Some discussions internally was what are the times to suit most people? So is it 7:30 to 9 or 9:30 to avoid? That's 2 hours of every day.
Right.
And then also from 3:30 to 6 p.m. So that's quite a range of
Yeah.
time. So now you only have, and then there's the lunch hour rush to discuss. So from 9 to 3:30 is a fairly short day for doing work in a civil nature, in some areas. So I guess what I'm looking for direction and maybe discussion at the committee level is how should we handle it as a group and a city, including concerns from Aaron with his contracting and capital works crews, along with developers and contractors and so on.
Yeah. And I'll open it to the floor if there's any questions for Aaron or. Okay.
I don't know if it's a question, more of a comment, that I'd be a little concerned about developing policy based on the experience this summer with the increased traffic due to other circumstances. And then these one-ofs that appear, like if there's a water break somewhere, well, there's going to be an interruption of traffic and that type of stuff. You can't shut that down and delay the correcting of that situation for. So I've been on council for 5 years now, and I don't ever recall getting a call from anybody complaining of undue delay. I think, but at the same time, I think we should be a little bit proactive in terms of the things we do have control over.
Right.
Not painting the major intersections at rush hour type of thing, and there's lots of other places they can be painting during those times. So I think just, and I'm not sure we need a policy to govern that. I think we've got, great staff that will, can provide the direction that needs to make sure that, we use the common sense approach to it.
Right. Thank you, Brian. Councillor McFeely. Councillor Adams?
I will agree, definitely staff have a good handle on what's going on. I do get a lot of calls, and it's probably due to the makeup of my area of the city. It's highly residential. You're trying to get out from Small onto Water Street East. You're trying to get out of St. Clair onto Water Street East. And those are dicey at the best of times. So then when you throw a delay into it, that throws a little wrench into things. And it is amazing. Like somebody just with a sign that says slow can, once the traffic starts, it's like starts creeping. It does make a big difference. I guess this just does go to show, like I've discussed with other residents, we do need to look at an alternate, route for traffic to move through our city, because it's not going to get any better, and our traffic numbers are going up, and that's a good thing. It's a good problem to have, but in the meantime, you do have people that are complaining that, people know that we are having traffic issues. Why are they doing the work at times when people are busy trying to get through? This summer was one of a kind, hopefully, when it comes to the traffic, just because of the roundabout that was going in. That put a lot of extra pressures on Water Street East and out by Reed's Corner. But having said that too, a lot of people were trying to avoid the construction and were coming down this way, so it led to a lot of extra congestion that we usually wouldn't have. I think just reminding staff, like you said, just to sort of be mindful and maybe not do the crosswalks by the school at 8:30 in the morning, or just be mindful of your central Granville Water, your main McEwen, your main drags in the peak times. But I think if we all work together and are mindful for a game plan until we have another approach, I don't see why we can't get through it.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Ramsey.
Thank you. Greg, you've had your challenges this year for sure, and with Storm Dorian and the roundabout on Granville, and your crew did an excellent job, and I'd like to commend them on that. I think with that being said, 5 calls isn't too bad. with everything that went on, you know. I haven't received any calls at all, but again, I guess using common sense in anything is always good, right? So if the guys are there and they realize that maybe they could go to another corner, that would be awesome. But sometimes that's not possible either. But anyway, I just wanted to say thank you for all your hard work, and hopefully we can resolve this little issue.
I think
Thank you.
one thing that's useful in the discussion tonight is obviously certain areas like Councillor Adams is more acute than other areas.
Right.
And there are other pre-existing problems which exacerbate the whole thing and make it worse, like people trying to get out. And what I was going to suggest was, if you look at your standard operating procedures and maybe look at, you know, defining different categories like, you know, acute, where areas like that especially are given a higher priority for avoidance than, say, Barb's area where it's not a problem. And then maybe also dividing things up into essential and non-essential type of work tasks. So essential would be water breaks and things like that, and non-essential, and there might be some way of, I know that you're a genius when it comes to all that kind of stuff. But I think it was good to bring it up tonight because it does point out that some areas are more acute than others. So it wouldn't be fair to say, well, I haven't got a plan, then I'm not. But some areas are going to attract more problems than others, and they should get the focus maybe.
Now, I do have Notre Dame and Water Street,
Well,
just so you know.
yeah, right. I didn't say zero, just not as quite as acute.
Councillor Campbell?
Yes, I'd like to say something.
Would you like to?
Yeah.
All right.
It's kind of a nuisance with the flag people, but if I can speak of her, I have a daughter who lives in Fredericton. I go up in Fredericton, and you hardly ever see a flag when it's all detours, and it is some inconvenience. If you're in a place that you're not too sure of, and they send you up one street, and then you try to find another street. So I guess I'm saying that, you know, good work. I'm still hearing complaints about our Granville Street do-over there a couple of years ago, but just spreading off into a couple of other streets that are not aware of how fortunate they are not to be on the main drive.
I can talk a little bit to what we do today and what we tell our services people to do. One is you never block off a street totally to traffic, so there's always flow unless it's documented and advertised in a communication stream. And if possible, you can set up for two-way traffic if you're only using part of the roadway. Thirdly, if you do need to go down to one lane of traffic, that the traffic personnel are properly trained and have mindful of flow. Those are when you can't get around the peak time sometimes. Comments are taken. Sometimes the way the work flows, a bunch of work is given, especially in crosswalk painting. You have a list to do of 20 crosswalks, and the crews start going down the list, and they do them in order for other reasons of priority and safety for certain sensitive areas. And usually, if you don't get into the areas that are higher traffic before the true heavy volume from July to September, then you really get into upset people doing arrows and stop bars and so on. So we try to avoid those mainly, which is the high peak shoulder seasons of tourism, as well as increased seasonal worker flow. So we do try to avoid those mainly months time with traffic painting, but sometimes we get behind due to factors outside our control, weather, and so on. And then some of the issues you try to balance in operations is you try to take the work needs to get done versus the inconvenience of getting the work done.
Right.
And sometimes you get complaints of traffic painting's not done in a timely manner. So you have to do balance all those concerns. So that's what I'd just like to appreciate for the committee.
I noticed CBC also announces in Charlottetown for people to stay away from certain areas of town or certain streets because there's going to be construction that day. Is that an option for us to imagine? It's a freebie. I would think it's on CBC.
We tried it for a while. We weren't really sure the uptake that we were getting, but on to echo some of Greg's comments, on the capital side, we try to, on the streets that have the higher volumes, we try to insist that the contractors get two-way traffic going if they can. There's times that they can't when they say they're either offloading material for their insurance reasons, they can't have traffic going that close. If they go to load something onto a truck and it goes off the edge and into moving traffic, it's going to be a bigger issue than a slight delay. And so we try and get them to cone off if they can, except when they're doing deliveries. again, as Councillor Campbell mentioned, a lot of it comes down to your flaggers and how well they can keep the traffic moving in both directions, which is a critical element that you're dealing with. Your lowest common denominator on the site is your flagger, and they're really controlling the flow. But we try and, if it's wide enough on the busier high volume streets, to keep traffic going in both directions with cones, make 2 separate lanes, even if they got to move them over. But I mean, without getting the exact numbers, Water Street East is something like 16,000 vehicles a day, and this summer it was 22,000. So it wasn't just a slight bump. It was just and if you have the slightest, as you mentioned, even they get if people are going and all of a sudden there's a flag up saying slow, once people slow down just a bit, doing the looky-loos, it doesn't take long when you're at that volume to really back it up, you know?
Yeah.
Everyone is being cautious, making sure it's not somebody walking out, and some people are just having a look, see what's going on. But once it slows down and it's that high a volume, it ripples pretty fast.
Okay. Councillor Pope, or Deputy Mayor.
Director Gregg and Director Aaron, I think that it is important, just, you know, for the information to come forth, that it can create that bottleneck and a problem. But on the other side of the coin, when you point out if you can only do the work between 9:30 and 3:30, there's a cost factor in, you know, slowing down the work, which delays the finishing up of the project. So that, I mean, that makes sense. That you point that out to us, and also the fact that you were mentioning, you know, with people, even if there's notice, to let them know that there is going to be delays or whatever. I think most people, if they know that there's an end goal or an end result, hopefully, you know, we can sort of try to work together on it. But thanks.
I think you need to drive around at some other communities as well and realize, like, I got a call at 10 to 8 this morning for somebody that's sitting at Sobeys in Stratford waiting to go to work. Traffic is stopped all the way to Sobeys. Like, you know, I know that's, but there's other areas that we're having routinely large volumes. We want the volume, we want the business, as people say, we want the increase in traffic. There's a few little wrinkles to it. We got to maintain the infrastructure, and there's going to be some delays, and we try not to detour them. We try to keep people on the paths, but
I think
a few hiccups. Hopefully they're limited. Yep.
No, I thank Councillor Adams for bringing it forward, and I think there's a whole lot of common sense, and I think, you know, staff can work to manage it or handle it. I don't think we need to dive into a policy right now or anything, but and we got to remember that we don't have a long season here to get the work done. So every time we slow it down, there'll be somebody else will be complaining, right? So anyway, with that, if there's nobody else, I guess I would ready for adjournment.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
We'll move on to the next committee. Councillor Ramsey of Police Services, a couple of recommendations, I see. The floor is yours. Go ahead. Welcome the chief to the head table.
So I'm going to call the meeting to order, and I'd like approval of the agenda. Thank you, Greg. And so I have 2 items on the agenda this evening, and the first one is parking on Notre Dame Street, and this was brought forward by Councillor Snow, and so I'm going to read the recommendation, and again, welcome Chief Poirier, and we'll have a discussion with the chief in a moment after I read this. So the concern is the parking in front of the Youth Engagement Center. So when I'm reading this, you'll know what I'm talking about. There's a total of 3 parking spots to be eliminated on the north side of Notre Dame Street, 2 directly in front of the Youth Engagement Center, and 1 space just west of the Confederation Trail crosswalk on Notre Dame Street. The supporting explanation: this request has come from staff at the Youth Engagement Center, as there have been plenty of near misses with pedestrians walking the Confederation Trail. walking south on the trail and having issues when vehicles are parked in front of the Youth Engagement Center building, causing a blind spot for the pedestrians. They're causing a safety concern. The staff at the Youth Engagement Center will be advising clients that there are approximately 25 spaces at the rear of the Boys and Girls Club for parking that can be utilized. The following is the report from the Tech Services Department. The no parking zone request should be a minimum of 9 meters before and after the crosswalk on Notre Dame at Confederation Trail. This is for the north side of Notre Dame Street at the crosswalk for the Confederation Trail. As we noted on site, the south side of the street already has no parking, the entire area of the street. I hope this helps set the limits to be included in the parking bylaw proposed changes. The alternatives are to leave it as it is. The advantages, it will make this a safer area for pedestrians walking on the Confederation Trail southbound, and the disadvantages are none foreseen because there is plenty of parking in the rear of the Boys and Girls Club. They just completed their parking lot there, and I think there's 25 extra spaces. The cost or the financial impact would be approximately $300 in total for 2 no parking signs and 2 posts. The work would be carried out by our municipal service staff during the regular working hours. So there's a photograph there on the screen that you see. You can see the trail is right directly in front of that truck. So if you're coming out, you're not going to be able to see who's coming down the, who's going west on Notre Dame Street for sure. So I'm going to open it up there to Chief Poirier for a moment, and then if anyone has any questions, they can just go ahead.
Just a question for you, Madam Chair. Just
Absolutely.
before that. Is there a sign on the trail that there's a street coming forward? Is there a sign in the trail that they're coming to the street? I guess wondering the sign. Where
No,
should
Your
the
Worship,
sign
I
be?
don't believe there is.
Yeah,
Should there
that
be?
would be Aaron. No,
But we can arrange that, I mean.
but I guess we could have that. Do we have that on every?
That's correct, there's none anywhere that I know of.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's not something that's common, I think, on the trails. Is it, Aaron? No. So, yeah.
So what about other places in the city where there's a trail?
No, there are no signs to say that there's
No
a
signs.
street.
No, but I mean in regards to taking the parking away from both sides of the other places where there's a trail.
So
Sorry,
Aaron, maybe we get Aaron to come up and answer that question for us.
There is some.
We got to keep in mind as well, it's the Youth Engagement Center Executive Director that requested this
It's him that
through
requested
Councillor Snow. Because mostly their clients that park there, and they've told them they can park at the rear for free,
Or their staff.
or their staff.
We don't have,
So just so I'm clear on that, so they were told and they won't? Is that what you're saying? I guess
It's not safe there.
There's no signage up yet, so he's advised his staff not to park there, and I guess they are listening, but there's no signage yet.
In all fairness, anybody that pulls up there to go in for a meeting, that's where they park. They don't park in the parking lot, so it's pretty dangerous, really, parking spot.
They just recently expanded their parking lot at the back across the street, and that's what he says. They're going to try and advise any of their visitors or guests to say, if there's no parking on here, there's lots of parking just across the street. Because they figure typically those people are after hours or when the Boys and Girls Club across the street is closed. But a lot of the meetings or visitors to the Youth Engagement Center is
That's
after
right. Yeah. So I guess the question that the mayor had, we'll go back to that, is anywhere on our trails, on the Confederation Trail in Summerside, are there signs leading up to when we're coming up to the streets? Are there anything to indicate to, the pedestrians?
Not that I'm aware of, and all the maintenance and signage on the trail is from the Confederation Trail group organization as far as that. But I guess it's just a case by, if this is a location where we're having near misses or a lot of blind spots, just deal with them on a case-by-case basis. And
maybe there should be signs in each area where the trail is coming to a street. And I'm just not quite sure on the thinking behind this. anybody can run out in front of a car any place parked in any street, and
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, by taking 3 or 4 parking spaces away, they could still walk across the street and hit by a car if they're not looking.
It's a blind spot though, but can you see where the truck is here on the screen, Basil? Yeah, and so if you're coming out of that trail, you could get out, you're gonna have to peek out around that truck to see if you're gonna be able to keep going.
But
Does
that
that
could
make
happen on
sense?
Water Street, somebody walking across Water Street, and walk out in front of a car and get hit.
We agree, and I think they're trying to target an area where they have a high volume of pedestrians crossing, and
Yeah.
saying, what can we do in that location where we have a high volume of pedestrians?
They're just trying to make it safer, yeah. Obviously, if it's Adam that's talking about it, he must be, as he said here, he's seen a lot of near misses, so I guess we're just trying to address what he is requesting.
But it seems like if the staff park there, and they continue to park there when they say there's parking in behind, can they not advise their staff?
Well, I believe he's advised his staff already, Your Worship. They're worried about
It's not
clients
just the
that
staff.
drop in, you know, or evening meetings.
So they didn't pay attention, we'll call the cops, sort of thing.
But it's parking, right? So it's already parking, so he can't. But I know I've gone in for meetings and I've parked there, and I always question myself if I should be parking there, because it doesn't even feel safe for me to leave my car there on that particular area. But anyway.
In my experience, this is the only spot where we've gotten complaints. When there's a crosswalk involved, or the Confederation Trail where it meets the road, street.
It's very close.
I just
So,
have one quick-
Carrie, yeah.
So if they were to park in back where the 25 spots are, and then walk over, they use either the crosswalk on Cedar, that crosses along Cedar,
Yes.
That's correct.
or the one that crosses along Duke,
Or
the
right here.
Confederation Trail.
Exactly, they could just
So
walk.
there's 3 crosswalks that people can be using to scoot through over to the Youth Engagement Center, right?
Exactly.
So it's not like they
I-
have to walk all the way down, they can come across in those 3
That's correct,
spots.
yeah, there'd be 3 spots.
Yeah.
And there is no parking entirely on the south side of the street, because the
That's the only place.
the center line is offset so that there's no parking on the south side at all. And the only parking is on the north side, so that we have room to have 3 lanes, 2 for traffic and 1 for parking.
Right. Okay. So are there any other questions on this? Justin?
Just, yeah, is there many, when it comes to the Youth Engagement Center, I don't know if you know this or not, Chief, you might know, do people get dropped off and picked up there a lot, or is it more people that park there and stay there?
Well, I know there's teenagers there in
Yeah.
the evenings, and yeah, it's quite a busy spot.
Would it
Mm.
ever, I mean, this might be a different issue, but would it ever be advisable maybe to put
A
you know, like
drop-off
a drop-off
sign.
spot with, you know, like lines on the pavement, just indicating that it's for drop-offs only. or
Drop-off
pickups and
only.
if you're there, but I mean, I guess maybe that during
is
the
a
peak
drop-
times probably keeps a vehicle there anyway, which is kind of what we're
They
not
do
trying
have
to
a
do.
driveway, what's not shown on the picture. They do have a driveway that they've built there
Okay.
that's just short of this, right where that sidewalk drops down. To the right of that is a driveway that if they wanted to.
And people will still drop them off even though there's no parking there.
Sure.
They'll drop them off for 2 seconds and
Yeah.
Same on the south side. We used to have the same, but now the boys and girls have moved their main entrance off the street.
Backside.
And also
Mhm.
the new parking they're talking, they just really created that. That's not been there for, they just finished paving that and expanding that in the last, say, month.
Yeah. I think he's just really concerned about the near misses, and, and he looks like he has good reason to be.
Is there room on their property to?
On their own
Yeah,
property?
at that engagement center, is there
Not at
room
this
to
one.
do our drive around
No.
lane? No.
Okay, so if there's no more questions, I'm going to recommend that this go to council, I guess, for a vote. And I guess that's our next step, is it? And, yeah, and I just need someone to second this, and Councillor Campbell will second that, and we'll move it to the November 18th meeting for a vote. So The next item on the agenda for police services, where did it go? Right here. So it's another parking concern, and it is on the bottom of Jennifer Street where there's a cul-de-sac. And I received a call from a Mrs. McGinnis who owns apartments on the bottom of Jennifer, who has received herself many calls from the residents that live in the apartment buildings, complaining that there was no room for emergency vehicles to get around there. So I'm going to read the recommendation that the cul-de-sac at the very bottom end of Jennifer Street be signed as a no parking zone. It's approximately 50 meters. Supporting explanation, complaints were received from the owners of McCormick's apartments as well as some tenants about other tenants continuously parking in the cul-de-sac, making it difficult for emergency vehicles to get around in this section, along with garbage trucks and school buses. The tenants at 293 and 296 Jennifer Street, according to the landlord, have designated parking next to their respective buildings, so there is no need to use a cul-de-sac for parking, and is requesting that the city assign the cul-de-sac as a no parking zone. This report below from Tech Services staff, along with aerial photos of this area. So there should be some photographs there. Now, on that particular photograph, there are 6 cars. Chief Poirier and I were up there one day, and there was probably 10 cars in there. So there was absolutely no way for anybody, any emergency vehicle to get around there. Garbage pickup, all their cans are there. The garbage truck can't get in there. McCormick's had some great concern around an ambulance arriving one day and them not being able to get around there, to get in the building, to get the person who was having difficulty. So anyway, Chief Poirier and I met up there the other day and took a peek, and it certainly should be assigned no parking as far as I'm concerned.
Back up again? So
Yep.
which area are you talking about?
So it's the bottom of Jennifer Street, Basil.
Is that a city street, a bottom part of it, or was
Yes.
Where are the garbage cans? I guess
So they're not in the picture, but they were there the other day because Chief Poirier and I spoke about them. That's where they're located. Right in front of those 4 cars is where they are now.
I never really was over the years in favor of removing too many parking spaces, because then the next week we're in here talking about not enough parking. But if one of those vehicles or one space was removed, wouldn't that make room for the ambulance?
It's not parking. It's a cul-de-sac. There's never been parking there in all the years. She said it just started about a year ago that tenants started to go in there because they have their own respective parking, but they're choosing to park there. And she said it's just dangerous with emergency vehicles and whatnot. I'm going to let.
You might want to read the rest report there from Director Aaron.
Okay.
Second paragraph.
Okay. So complaints were, okay, there are cars parking in the paved turnaround area. Staff has measured, and the full turnaround paved area is required for emergency vehicles only. So it's recommended for emergency vehicles, right? That's what cul-de-sac is for. So it is currently a smaller paved turn area than stated standard. So no parking, underlined, should be allowed in the street portion of this location. There are paved off-street parking for these buildings. Future ones will have to be determined on a case-by-case basis. So the alternative is to leave it as is. The advantage is safe for emergency vehicles and other large vehicles that need a large turning radius, like buses and ambulance and fire trucks. The disadvantage is an unforeseen. The cost would be approximately $450 in total for 3 signs and 3 posts. Work would be carried out by municipal service staff during regular work hours. So the floor is open.
So where's the ambulance going, through you, Madam Chair? where those 4 or 5 cars are parked, or the fire trucks, the garbage trucks are not usually on that street, aren't they, on the properties? I guess, where's the problem reading it? Sorry?
That's all parking. That's all parking back here. Where there's no cars, that's
Yeah.
all just parking. And the vehicles aren't back there, they're out here. There's also parking over here for this
So
building.
right there where those 6 cars are parked, how would they be in the way for a car going in there to the ambulance or something?
Well, there's your front door, Mayor. See the front door where the hand is? So
Well,
if
the-
you've got an ambulance coming,
But the walkway is up here. isn't it?
right? And a fire truck going in there, or garbage pickup. They live there, so it's those people who are complaining, the owner and her tenants who are saying that they don't feel it's safe. So I'm just bringing the information forward, and Chief, I open it to you.
It's hard to tell, but there are no parking spaces in the cul-de-sac. You know, it's not a parking lot, and people park there out of necessity for, if they're in a rush to do something, but there's no way you could ever get a school bus or a fire truck around that area at all. It's one of the smaller cul-de-sacs in the city, I believe.
There's other, we're not suggesting that all cul-de-sacs don't have parking, because there's some that are larger, and that one there is a smaller diameter than our standard, and to fit, you need all the pavement to turn rigs on that one as it is.
You gotta make sure the fire trucks and the ambulances and emergency vehicles can get through. There's no question about that.
And even a bus to get in there to drop the children off, they can't turn around. There's nowhere to turn around. So they don't have the cul-de-sac, right? So,
There's a question for the chief to answer.
what's that?
In here, sorry.
I'm sorry, if there's no parking there, if it's not allowed, why don't we just issue some warning tickets to start it?
There's nothing in the bylaw that says it's no parking. I mean, it's like any other cul-de-sac in the city. We don't issue tickets unless it's in the bylaw.
So the options are is to put, if we put no parking there, it has to be in the bylaw as well.
That's correct,
So
Your
you
Worship.
have to
This is
correct.
the first
some
step.
authority when you issue tickets.
This is the
correct.
first step to amend the bylaw. Would it have to come to a committee meeting and then have to go to council to get amended into the bylaw at the monthly meeting before our ticket would be?
Shoot.
So if somebody argues that it's in the bylaw, I guess, Chief, that they're all listed, all the parking areas are listed in the bylaw to allow them to enforce tickets.
That's correct.
But aren't there areas in the city, on any street, if a car is parked in the street in the way, you can issue a ticket without a bylaw?
Well, especially in the wintertime hours or times, Your Worship, I mean, there's a bylaw enacted where there's no street parking, overnight street parking between 1 and 6 in the morning. That's a given from November the 1st on for all the winter. Yes, I mean, if you're parked in front of a fire hydrant, or there's other offenses.
Too
as well.
close to the stop signs.
But if somebody stopped on that street coming down there on the side of the road, probably no parking signs, but if they're obstructing traffic in any way, you can give them a ticket.
Yes, if there's, you know, I mean, when you look at the photograph, I mean, there's room to park there, and I believe Councillor Adam, or Councillor Ramsey and myself parked there the day off, so in this area, so parking is allowed there on the street obstructing traffic, but we don't get too many of those calls.
No, not on the street, but I think the concern is, again, the emergency vehicles being able to get through there. That's basically what she said to me, you know, so. Councillor McFeely.
How many cul-de-sacs do we have in the city?
There's quite a few. There's quite a few in Councillor Adams' neighborhood, and a lot of those are larger than the standard that you need.
This is small.
Just the ones we took over, but there's quite a few. I couldn't hazard a guess, but I'll say more than 20. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just trying to figure, I mean, I think this is an issue that needs to be resolved. I mean, the intent of a cul-de-sac is you can drive down there and turn around.
Right.
That's
And
right.
this one here is a tighter diameter than
Small.
a lot of the ones
But whether
which we took it over.
whether we do sort of an all-encompassing approach to it or just deal with the one-ofs, I don't know.
the ones that are in Councillor Adams are huge. People can still park around the edge and you can still
And
do
you
it.
can still get
Well,
them.
maybe we just deal with the one of them and
That's what I'm thinking too. As complaints come in, maybe we can deal with them, but this one is just small and
it
there's
just
no,
seems to me, I'm quite familiar with that particular area. Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything you're saying. I think there's an issue there that needs to be resolved.
I guess it would be different if there was no parking, but there's tons of parking there, you know, so I guess that's,
Obviously, it could create an issue for the snowplows in the winter as well.
and the
Clean.
snow plow in the winter, yeah, exactly, yeah. So, if there's no further questions, then I will just move this forward to the council meeting, I guess, on the 18th again, and we'll,
So the council meeting will be to have it in the bylaw, so that's going to take some time, or what's the procedure here that you want to handle it?
no,
Is it just no parking?
it's just a no parking there. I don't think it has to
Well,
be, go to the bylaw.
Yeah, so just no parking, and once, if it goes to council and it's passed, then we usually put the signs up right away and issue warnings for a couple of weeks, and
Just be a form for resolution of council.
that's correct.
Yeah,
Thank you.
just on that one, yeah. Well, unless there's a problem, right, you know, so. Okay, so do I have a seconder on that? Craig? Councillor Campbell, thank you.
The street will be named in the resolution to make sure we get the one that we're talking about.
Yeah. Yes. Mr. Harlick has that. So Jennifer, the bottom of Jennifer Street, be moved to the council meeting on November 18th for a vote. And if there's no more questions, I guess we can adjourn police services.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ramsey.
Thank you.
And we're going
Thank
on-
you, Chief Poirier.
Chief. And Rob, while you're still here, Rob, Mr. Philpott, we're coming to financial services. But, oh, Rob is coming. I thought you were stepping out. But at this time, I want to pass on condolences to Rob. He lost his uncle. He passed away in St. John's, was it? In Gander. And so we pass on our condolences, and he'll be out of town for a couple of days. Yeah. Okay. So we'll turn this financial services over to Deputy Mayor McCollum.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to call for the approval of the November 5th, 2019 Financial Services Committee. So I'll approve it.
Sure.
We usually don't do these meetings, they're more in the boardroom. Anyway, there's two items on the agenda this evening. One is the recommendation for the gas tax allocation. And I do have some information to read on it, as well as Director Philpott will be making a few financial administrative comments just to highlight for our benefit. The gas tax funding or money that we did receive, the staff recommend that council endorses that the direct allocation of gas tax funding as detailed in the letter of understanding received from the province of Prince Edward Island in January 2019 be allocated as follows. So in the fiscal year of 2019-20, the capital projects for paving 2019, $444,090. The storm sewer 2019, the amount allocated $300,000. The boardwalk remediation 2019, the amount $300,000. Sidewalks for 2019, $262,400. Pedestrian crossing lights for 2019, $50,000. The total of that amount for the fiscal year would be $1,356,490. Yes, 2019 into 220. There's also a 4-year plan, and this would be for the east-west connector. So commencing in 2020-21, the amount that will be allotted in our budgeting would be $1,356,490. The following year, 2021-22, for the east-west connector, $1,433,775. Following year, 2022 to 23, for the same east-west connector, the same amount, $1,433,775. And then the final in the 4-year plan, 2023 to 24, for the east-west connector, $1,510,352. The total gas tax direct allocation funding for 2019 to 2020 up to 2023-2024 is $7,090,882. What I would like to point out, with recent comments or whatnot, I just want to make sure that our residents and community, so that we are being very transparent to our residents in tonight's public meeting on the outline that I've just outlined for capital projects, our timelines, the amount of gas tax money that's being allocated by the city of Summerside in these very necessary projects in Summerside for our residents overall throughout city of Summerside. And at this point, I'll turn it over to Director Philpott for his comments.
I'm assuming that east-west connector is alias Pope Road Extension. Is that money for that? No?
That, and that's what I wanted to speak on. I agree with everything that's there, except for the 2021 east-west connector, the 1.356,490. I really believe that that should be designated for the Pope Central. You know, I don't see that 1.3 being spent on the east-west connector as important as that Pope Central thing. I would hope that the council would direct that 1.356 to the Pope Central project for that 2021 year.
And thank you, Councillor McDougall. And just to follow up on that point for all members of council, what this, the purpose of tonight's recommendation is simply, it's more of an administrative measure in that the province has asked all municipalities to submit a 5-year plan as to how we might expect to spend our annual allocation of gas tax. Now, this is not something that has to be cast in stone, okay? It can be changed as per council direction at any time. What we had proposed for 2019-2020 was just to divvy it up among 4 or 5 projects that we do have underway in our budget right now. The east-west connector, I guess our rationale for wanting to propose this tonight was simply that where some members of council and senior staff have been involved with asset management planning over the last 1.5 years, and we've had some recent discussions around the east-west connector as a project, again, realizing that it hasn't been formally approved by council. We figured that this might be a worthwhile project to be able to include in this plan. Having said that, if council has any other suggestions, such as Open Central, we're certainly open to that as well.
I would recommend for that year.
For that year? Okay.
What year?
Well, the 2021 budget. The 2021 budget.
Next
year.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a project I think that most councillors would like to see, and you know, we've talked to the residents. We've promised the residents we're going to do something. I feel that there's 1.3 that probably won't be missed in the east-west connector project.
Should we be talking about the numbers? What if it comes in at 600?
That's just going to be a part of it.
No, but I know you're talking about the gas tax allocation, but we got no idea what the cost will be for that intersection at this point.
No.
I guess what Councillor McDougall is suggesting, that maybe council may want to consider setting aside 1.356 million for 2020-21 to go towards the Pope and Central project.
I like the way you said that, towards. You're not confirming that that's what the bids will be when we call for tenders, that it'll be the number we're quoting.
Still to be done.
So I guess, Director Philpott, what I'm wondering is, do we need to make that recommendation tonight to redirect that funding? Or is that something that will be in our minutes and we will discuss?
What we can do, Deputy Mayor, is that if council's in agreement with the change proposed by Councillor McDougall, we can propose a resolution for the monthly meeting at council which will include that in it.
So do we need to have a show of hands to redirect that funding so that there could be a resolution or a,
When
okay.
you say redirect, I'm not sure what you mean there. If it's
Councillor McDougall?
Instead of directing for that year for the east-west connector, we
Yeah.
direct that portion
Yeah, but is there
towards-
anything in place saying that it was directed for the east-west connector? Why are
Yes,
we redirecting
this,
something?
this resolution. So instead of the resolution saying that east-west connector for 2021, we're gonna be saying.
We're just changing the resolution.
Right.
It's not
Yeah.
basically
Yeah.
redirecting.
No.
For
Yeah.
that first year.
For that first year,
East-west
yeah.
connector would be the other years.
Yes.
Because in actual fact, the Pope Road extension is gonna be a part of the connector. Goes through
Eventually.
Pope Road and stuff like that, so.
Yeah.
It's just want to make sure that it's, we don't have to change much other than make sure that it is labeled to go there for that year.
We'll do that in just a moment. Go ahead, Mayor Basil.
Is this the first time we sort of, in November, or whenever, redirected money when we didn't get into the budget discussions yet? Well, I'm missing something here.
No.
I know we got
this is the-
second gas tax.
Sorry, this is a procedure, Your Worship, that we've had to follow every year at the province's request. Ever
Okay.
since the gas tax program's come out, they've asked us to file spending plans, whether it's a 5-year plan or a 3-year plan. And
When do they want that plan?
by the end of November.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Councillor Carey?
I guess I just wanted to make sure that when the public asks, this is just gas tax money. This is not any other money. So, like, I know I'll be asked about the east-west connector portion and putting it off, but this is just gas tax money. This isn't other monies in the budget that would be allotted to it. Okay.
You're just sequencing things.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly. Okay.
Are there any other questions, comments before we just move that redirection of the 20 to 21 year?
Oh, I just wanted to, it's not a question, it's just, I would be happy to see that 1.3 million go towards Pope Road and Central. For sure, it's in my ward, and it's in Mr. Councillor Duran's ward and Councillor Campbell's ward.
We're
So.
still using the dollar number.
Yes.
Yeah, not saying that, yeah, exactly, but anything close to that would be lovely.
Because when we talk about the number, what it is, when you go out for quotes, you can put in there, guess what the quote will be, even if it's, maybe that's not fair to say, but when we go out for quotes, we want to be able to make sure that it's accurate.
Okay, Councillor McFeely. Brian?
Yeah, I think we just need to differentiate that the number is the allocation for each year. And if I understood your comments earlier, is that this is very flexible. I mean, each year we would have the opportunity to revisit it and.
This time next year, we'll probably have to file another plan.
Yeah. There's nothing here etched in stone.
Can I ask one more question, Councillor, Deputy Mayor? This November, or whatever date you mentioned, is the date that it has to be in. Is that the same date that they used when our fiscal year was the calendar year? So now that our fiscal year is March the 31st, that month hasn't moved. Well, it's especially when I guess it's a letter from the province.
Yeah, we haven't received any notification from the province, put that way. Yep. Sorry.
Thank you.
Okay. So, just taking in the advice and comments made, and there being no further questions or comments, I'd like to have a show of hands in the area of the last 4 years, that year number 2020 to 2021, the funds allocated in the amount of $1,356,490 would be redirected to the Pope and Central Street project that has been discussed. And by a show of hands, I would like to ask those council members in favor for that redirection of funds.
Why couldn't you just have the gas tax refund rather than the numbers?
The funds for.
Maybe it's required, is it?
Yeah, they would like to see the resolution.
Yeah, the resolution, but I
with
mean,
the amount.
or the
It's
amount
been
should
broken
be-
down.
The amount has to be in the resolution.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
So, can we see a show of hands? Okay, unanimous, and that will go to the redirection for Pope and Central Street project.
Were you holding Corey's hand up there, Councillor Campbell?
Thank you.
Your worship.
Thanks, Rob, and all the best. to you.
Okay, we have one more item on our financial services agenda, and I'm going to actually, and I forgot to ask you, CAO Bob, if you could speak to that in your comments earlier a week or two ago with regards to the Samaritan's Purse donation. I'll just bring a little bit of a backstory on it. I did mention in our October report that we did receive from Samaritan's Purse an updated report. And in that amount, I was looking, there's 4 pages of streets that were certainly from the Summerside area that were benefactors of the work that Samaritan's Purse volunteers did. And certainly the names are there, and all of that information has been provided in their report. But what I did want to point out is that there were 196 written requests for support orders or work orders. There were 126 completed. There were 8 volunteers daily. There were a total of 138 volunteers, and in their time given, there were 467 days. I'm approaching council on the fact of we want to send a thank you letter to Samaritan's Purse National Office because they're now working in another disaster area, and we wanted to send a thank you letter. Now, I will turn that over to CAO Bob for the comments. There was another community that had made a donation, and we were just getting a consensus tonight from council.
Yes, it is a charitable organization, and they came here because the city was in need. Another community has had their council approve a donation of $2,000 quite recently. All I can say is that my communication with Samaritan Purse was a bit of a savings grace because a lot of the work of those 190 calls would have come to us. And I would suggest that Samaritan Purse has not only saved the city taxpayers a lot of money with the work that they did voluntarily, but they also created a lot of goodwill in the community because I had citizens commenting on the cooperation between all agencies, and that included the province, who was very helpful, Samaritan's Purse, and our own city staff. So just something for council to consider, and I had put forward a suggested amount of $5,000.
So the reason why it's being brought forward tonight to council is it couldn't go forward unless there was some type of a consensus and direction from council. So what I would like to do is open it up to council members for your thoughts, questions, or comments.
Did they do all the work for Kensington? Kensington made the other donation. That's public information in the paper. So all the cleanups out there were done by Samaritan's Purse, or did they have assistance?
I don't know, but I imagine that they probably were helping in a supplementary role to Kensington's own staff.
And if I may add, the work, how they've broken it down, any of the work that they did, they have noted that. But if it was Department of Transportation, or Department of, I guess I'm trying to think, DOT, Department of Transportation? For the, anyway, it was referred on if it was a bigger job than they could handle. Any questions or comments?
I do.
Question.
Oh,
go ahead. Mine was on first, but you go ahead.
Sorry, Bruce.
Who's on second?
I think what they did was absolutely amazing for the city of Summerside and surrounding areas, and it would have cost the city a whole lot more had Samaritan's Purse not been present through this disaster. I want and $5,000 is a little bit compared to what they did for us. I want to take this opportunity to thank the Summerside Community Church, and Andrew Bryce, who housed Samaritans first. They used their parking lots. They used the showers. They used the kitchen. Summerside Community Church is an amazing organization, and I just wanted to say thank you to them and to Andrew Bryce for all they did for this community during that time as well. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I too want to, I agree with the amount that's been proposed, and I think they've saved us an awful lot of money. I know they did an awful lot of work around the St. Eleanor's area and throughout the city, but they really were a godsend when we needed them. So, and it took a lot of pressure off us. So, I would fully support the donation to the Samaritan's Purse.
Thank you. Anyone?
I know that I had 4 calls, people that called me, and I referred them on to Samaritan's Purse. And it was an elderly couple who had over 20 trees down in their lot. One was a single mom, one was a young family, and people just didn't know where to start. They were just overwhelmed. And when they all called me back to say that, they were coming, they worked around their work schedule, they were very, very accommodating, and that when they left, they felt so good about it, and they were very hesitant to ask for help, but they just didn't know what to do. So they were very thankful. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Carey. Councillor Bryan? Oh, Councillor Gregg, I'm sorry.
No, just to comment, not only the work, but they seem to give everybody a comfort during, which was really important.
So I guess just based on that, and the other member of Finance Committee, I would move a motion that Finance Committee recommend to Council at its meeting on the 18th of November that a donation of $5,000 be advanced to Samaritan First.
Thank you very much, everybody. And that concludes the Financial Services meeting. And thank you. We'll pass it on to our next chair.
I believe that's the last one. That's the last committee meeting. I see there's a couple items for the committee of the whole, and so let's take a 5-minute recess. Is there a motion to adjourn our meeting? Moved, seconded. All in favor? Let's take a 5-minute stretch. Thank you very much.